Chapter 18 Southern Sudan, 2009. Naya waited her turn in line. She was holding a plastic bottle. The well was finally finished. The gravel had been put down to make a foundation, and the pump had been installed, and the cement had been poured and left to dry. Before the pump was used for the first time, the villagers all gathered around. The leaders of the workers brought out a big sign made of blue canvas. The canvas had writing on it, and the writing was in English, but the leader spoke to Naya's uncle, and Uncle told what the sign said. In honor of Elm Street School, Uncle said. That's the name of the school in America. The students at the school raised the money for this well to be dug. Uncle held up the end of one of the signs. The workers' leader held up another end. Everyone else stood around it, and one of the workers took a picture. The picture would be sent to the American school so that the students there could see the well and the people who were now getting used to it, now using it. Then the villagers all got in line to wait her turn for the water from the new well. When Naya reached the head of the line, she smiled shyly at her uncle, who paused in his work for a moment to smile back at her. Then he began moving the pump handle up and down, up and down. A stream of water flowed from the mouth of the pump, and Naya held her bottle underneath the pump mouth. The bottle filled up quickly. She stepped aside to let the next person fill a bottle, and then she drank. The water was delicious. It wasn't warm or muddy like the water from the pond. It was cool and clear. Naya stopped drinking and held up the bottle so she could look at it. Funny how that something without any color could look so nice. She drank a few more sips, then glanced around. Everyone had a bottle or a cup. They were drinking that lovely water or waiting in line for more, talking and laughing. It was a celebration. An old granddad standing not far from them, Naya shook his head. In a loud voice, he said, "This is where we used to gather for our bonfire celebrations. I have been sitting on this ground my whole life, and all these years I never knew that I was sitting on top of this good water." Everyone around him laughed, and Naya laughed too. In a few more days the school would be finished, and Naya and Dep and Akir would all go to school along with the other children. Next year there would be a marketplace where the villagers could sell and buy vegetables and chickens and other goods. There was even talk of a clinic someday, a medical clinic, so they wouldn't have to walk so far to get help as they had to when Akir was ill. It was the well that was bringing the village all of these good things. But for the well was not for their use alone. People would come from miles around to fetch the good clean water. Naya knew from listening to the grown-ups that the crew leader had made arrangements concerning the well. No one was ever to be refused water. Some of the villagers would be responsible for maintaining the well, and it would be busy with this new work. So the entire village was to help them with their crops and cattle. Other villagers, including Naya's uncle, would resolve any disputes that arose. The well would change their life in many ways. I will never again have to walk to the pond for water, Naya thought. She wandered around a little, sipping the cool, fresh for a drink. Then she caught sight of the crew leader. He was standing by himself, leaning against one of the trucks and watching her uncle work the pump. Deep saw her look at the man. "That man, the boss of the workers," Deep said. "You know who he is, Dinka?" Naya looked at Deep in astonishment. The Dinka and the Nuer didn't look very different physically. You had to look at the scar patterns on people's faces to tell the tribes apart. Dinka's scar patterns were different from those of the Nair. But the crew leader had no scars on his face. Naya had heard some of the teenage boys talking about that, wondering why he had no scars when clearly he was a grown man. The leader's assistant was Nuer, so most of the crew, they all had Nuer scars. Naya hadn't thought about it much, but she realized now that she always assumed the leader was Nair too. The Dinka and the Nair were enemies, had been for hundreds of years. Why would a Dinka bring water to us, she wondered. I heard Uncle and Father talking about him, Deep said. He has drilled many wells for his own people. This year he decided to drill for the Nuer as well. Deep had not really answered Naya's question. He probably doesn't know the answer, he thought, but now Naya felt there was something she had to do. She walked over to where the man was standing. He didn't notice her at first, so she waited quietly. Then he saw her. "Hello," she said. Shyness flooded through Naya, and for a moment she didn't think she would be able to speak. She looked down at the ground, then the stream of water still flowing from the pump mouth, and she found her voice. "Thank you," she said, and looked at him bravely. "Thank you for bringing the water." The man smiled. "What's your name?" he asked. "I am Naya." "Happy to meet you, Naya," he said. "My name is Selva."